Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Teal, and I am the director of the second annual Fayetteville Jazz Festival. I'm very excited to be here today to present something for you in a way that we were very much not expecting, as I'm sure you are in circumstances that you are not expecting, being at home, figuring out a new way of doing a lot of different things in your daily lives, and especially engaging with music that would normally, we would expect this to be something we could interact with each other and experience in a live situation. So hopefully this is the next best thing, and you're going to have a great time enjoying all of these performance workshops by musicians that are from around the Northwest Arkansas area, but also, as far-reaching as New York City, Denton, Texas, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Buenos Aires, Argentina. So that, is something where we can bring together something that would not have been able to happen in the case of our original plan with the Fayetteville Jazz Festival. So that's an exciting bonus for us this year. I just want to say a couple things. Just huge thank you to the University of Arkansas Music Department for their support of being able to bring in and adequately pay these great performers and educators. And especially huge thanks in terms of creative skill, logistical help from everybody at the Community Music School at the U of A, Kim Jones, Nastasia Riley, Austin McFarland, and Jacob Esterline. Without you guys, this would not be happening. So huge thanks. Before we get going with our workshops, our performances of the day, I'd just like to bring your attention to the fact that while this is pre-recorded, you can support the artists, meaning the musicians that you are going to watch here, by donating money through a link that is down in the description. So that's something that's just like an extra thank you for things that you enjoy out of their performance, things that you're going to take away as musicians and practice. So every little bit helps, especially in this day and age when a lot of musicians who you're seeing today, their main source of income is freelancing, going out and playing and teaching live, interacting, and a lot of those jobs have gone away. And so we're really excited to be able to bring them to you in this format, but feel free, if you can, add a little bit of an extra support through the link below. We are doing a lot of great and exciting things, regardless of the current, isolationist situation that we're all working with through the Community Music School. And that means that we are still going to be running our summer camp in an entirely virtual format, and you can learn more about that below. It's going to be available again for youth anywhere from age 11 to 18 and adults 18 on up, and different levels depending on your skill and expertise and background, of course. And so that means that if you have no background in playing jazz and want to get started, this summer camp is a great place to start. And so check out our links below. Also, we're trying to make the camp available to as many different people as we can, and that means offering a sliding scale for enrollment. And so check that out. If you think there's no way that I can afford this, we still want to make it happen for you. We have everything up until full tuition waivers available, and that is in large part thanks to the incorporation of the Institute for Creative Music, which I am very pleased to be a part of and serve as the co-director of, and our partnership with the U of A Community Music School. So if you are interested in taking part in our summer camp through virtual services like this type of a YouTube stream, but a lot of interactive small group and things where you can have the opportunity to play for and hear in person as much as we can from our great camp faculty. So again, check out those links below, and if you'd like to sponsor a scholarship, if you have a little bit more that you can do to help out musicians and to get them so that they're able to participate, that link is also available below. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and kick things off today. For day 2 of our Fayetteville Jazz Festival, we're going to feature pretty much 40-minute to hour-long workshop performances with some of the finest musicians from around Northwest Arkansas, as well as, honestly, the world. We're getting people, Lauren Lee from New York City, Nick Finzer from Denton, Texas, Matthew Golombisky from Buenos Aires, Doug Stone all the way from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So stay tuned. There's a link to all of those workshops that are going to be released and premiered today on April 25th, 2020, and of course available in the future going forward. And if you didn't get a chance to check out the great workshop and listening session that we did with our artist in residence, trumpeter Garrett Schmidt, make sure to check that out in the playlist below. All right, without further ado, please enjoy the day of music. Bring your family in, spend some time getting to listen. If you're a musician, grab your instrument, sing along, try to do some of these interactive things that the teachers are presenting, and just have a great day of music. And we hope to see you in person next year for the 3rd annual Fayetteville Jazz Festival. Now, it feels a little bit awkward to be doing this. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm kicking off our festival performance workshop on the drum set with some talk about improvisation and some participation from you all on your audience part. So please enjoy me, Chris Teal, coming up next. hope everybody is doing really, really splendid today, and that this introduction to the Fayetteville Jazz Festival, I guess I am the kickoff musical event. I hope that this is something that you are ready to focus on and try some new things along with me. So whether you're a drummer or not, there's going to be some interaction. So get ready, do some light stretching, maybe some deep breaths to get yourself going. And okay, we're gonna go ahead and talk a little bit. I just played an improvised solo, and I don't know what you just heard, and some of the things that I went in and out of are going to be the focal point of this workshop today. In particular, the concept of playing and understanding and feeling a steady, I don't know, I guess somewhat static pulse, the way that we might think of most jazz music. I don't know, most, or at least things that sound like this might be something we think of as having a steady, continuous, maybe static pulse like this. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it's grooving along. You've probably heard something like that. You've probably played something like that if you're a drummer watching this. For anybody who is not a drummer, we're just going to get a common movement going on, and that is just walking with our feet. And so, as I mentioned in the short little preface, you're going to have to do some of this with me. So you can watch my feet. You've probably been doing this already today around your house, hopefully getting some fresh air. We're just going to walk our feet back and forth, and you're going to hear my bass drum and my hi-hat smash and crash. All right, so try that. Go ahead and sit or walk along. We're just going to go. Great. Seems pretty even. It's just like we're walking along, we're feeling the weight of our legs, of our feet articulating on the ground, or maybe you're sitting in a drum set and you're making those sounds along with me. It should be pretty steady. It should have a nice flow to it. I'm not thinking of bass drum, stop, hi-hat, next. No, I'm just doing it. It's as naturally as walking, okay? So we want to get that going and have a nice steady sense of flow to it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to throw some stuff at you. I'm going to see if I can keep my feet going. You're going to keep a steady pulse going. I'm just going to play some ideas that, first off, lock in with that. And we're just going to see and hear and feel what that sounds like, okay? Let's go ahead. Everybody walk your feet at home along with my feet. And I'm going to do some things in my hands that complement that. 1, 2, 3, and... Okay, so I went into some drummer things where I maybe move my bass drum around to play with my ride cymbal or my crash, which, as I tell my students, it's a great thing to do. It accentuates that sound. But for the most part, we're just walking, we're just feeling a nice steady pulse, and it's grooving. It's something that we've heard a lot before. So kind of the counter to that and the corollary is what we're going to try now. And I'll talk about what this is after, but we're just going to do some things first. So I think that actually as kind of an overreaching thought for this workshop, stick with me here. We're doing a lot of thinking these days, and there's nothing wrong with thinking. I think that thinking is, I feel that thinking is a very important thing to do, if not every day, probably at least a couple times a week. You know, keep yourself in order and organized and plan and things like that. For this workshop, you know, in the confines of an hour, I don't want you to think too much. I just want you to listen to what I tell you to do, try to do it, and just be that sound, be that movement, move your body around, try some different stuff with me, okay? We have everybody raise your right hand, repeat after me. I state your name. Thank you. I will not think for the remainder of this workshop. Okay, great. So we're on the same page. So just try this with me. I'm going to have you continue to walk your feet back and forth. Listen to the other sounds that I'm playing, but I'm going to go ahead and say that these sounds are not always going to connect directly with that nice walking static pulse we're doing. All right, let's try this. Everybody walk. 1, 2, ready, walk. All right. So hopefully you still were able to walk and stay steady and consistent. The sounds that I was playing may have disrupted you a little bit, and that's somewhat intentional. So what I was doing there is pairing this idea of having a steady underlying pulse, which we're all familiar with. You know, if anybody ever tells you that you have, you know, as a musician, you have a bad time feel or something like that, you tell them to just go ahead and get out of town, because you've been walking around, you've been doing all kinds of things with your bodies that have this even back and forth pulse, and it's just a matter of recognizing it and recognizing some of the different layers that encounter it and then maybe also bounce off it. So we all have good senses of time. It's just, you know, to different degrees. So as we're walking back and forth, it might have felt a little bit uncomfortable with some of the ideas that I was doing because they did not directly line up with our 1, 2, 1, 2, or whatever. You know, we don't need to count for this. We're just feeling, we're moving back and forth. And that was intentional. So this second sort of model that I just did was the idea of having a little bit more of an elastic time feel. So I still had times where I would come back and I would hit and line up with this steady pulse that's working in my feet. There were a lot of other times where I was intentionally trying not to do that. And that is certainly something that takes a little bit of practice. But as I said, we have this great thing that we can do, you know, every day, walking around, whether it's walking around the house, walking around your neighborhood. And it probably has a pretty good amount of practice at staying nice and steady. And I know sometimes, we get into weird positions and maybe one of our legs is longer than the other or something like that. We might have a little bit of a hitch to it. And that's cool too. It has its own sort of rhythm and it develops a steady pulse in that way. Okay. So what I want us to think about is this intersection and the ability to go forward and away from having steady time and to elastic time. So we think of that as like static and elastic. I think that's probably a little bit more of a better parallel. Not that there's anything wrong with static, not that there's anything wrong with elastic time, but it's something that's fun as a drummer and, you know, as other improvising musicians that we have the opportunity to play around with. And to give a little bit of, I don't know, I guess, prove it, Chris. Like, is this fine? Are you the only person who's doing this? No, this is something that I have heard and enjoyed and was inspired by lots of, probably all of my favorite jazz musicians play around with the time in this sort of degree. But in terms of drummers and people who are in this sort of environment who do this quite a bit, a drummer who was a really great influence for me and who really just shot my head off my shoulders the first time I heard him, is a drummer named Nasheet Waits, who plays with a lot of different groups, can play really steady time, but has this ability to just kind of create this wall of sound that messes around and kind of pushes and pulls things like that, and is able to play really dense, but also can kind of leave space and things like that. So people like Nasheet Waits, Paul Motion, I would probably say honestly is the godfather of this sort of style of playing. Somebody who is in a lot of academic jazz circles, especially known for his groundbreaking playing with the piano trio of Bill Evans and Scott LaFaro. Fantastic, just sound, concept, and feel, and ability to do things that play with your expectations, whether it's keeping steady time and breaking it up in certain ways, leaving a lot of space, but especially as he went on and would have his own groups, his fantastic trio with Joe Lovano and Bill Frisell, as well as some of like the on Broadway recordings, his electric bebop band. He could just do all kinds of things that just played with the time, but always had a fantastic awareness of the form. And so that's even going beyond the concept of, okay, I can keep a steady 1, 2, 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4. He is hearing chord changes, he is hearing resolution points that are 4 bars, 8 bars, whatever lines up with the song, and able to kind of push and pull and do things that connect with those in really excellent ways. And so I would say that if you're looking to get more into this style, don't just take my word for it. Check out Nashit Waits, check out Paul Motion, check out Dave King with the Bad Plus, fantastic sound concept. And all of these people, every time that I listen to them, I'm not only inspired, but my mind is sucked into what they're doing. Like I talked at the beginning of this, trying to just focus on what we're having here together, even though there's not a lot of interaction at this point. Leave comments and have a conversation with me, of course. But I just can't turn away from what they're doing because it's cliche free. There are reference points that speak of the drum language, of the jazz language, but it's going in such a different way that like it's like watching a great film or somebody playing basketball or sports at a high level. It's like you're just enraptured by what they're doing. And so that's the kind of experience that I'm trying to dig into. So this sort of static, elastic playing can work in a lot of different ways. And so something I'd like us to try is we're going to go in both directions. And I did that quite a bit in my little introductory solo. I started off with kind of a little theme that moved around my toms and to this nice trashy cymbal that I have here. And then it went into something that was more of a conventional kind of swing groove. And then it went into sort of lots of sounds, slowed speeds up and all this kind of stuff. And then I had some resolution points, ba, ba, fill, maybe stretch, and then ba, da, do, da. So there were these resolution points that I was trying to put in there to add, something for the listener as well as myself to hang on to and reference, okay? So what I'm going to do is we're going to just shrink that down into a little exercise, and you can do this as a drummer, of course. Just copy what I'm doing. If you are a non-drummer, get your instrument out, sing along. Try to do this with the pulse, and so the pulse is going to be right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the pulse is always going to be, now in this case, we're going to move our ears around. I want you to follow my ride cymbal. So this is going to be where the pulse is. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I might improvise around with the rest of my limbs. I'll try to keep that as steady as I can. But I'm just going to intentionally play steady time, and then we're going to speed up and slow down. See if you can do it with me, okay? So we're just playing time. If you're not a drummer, you can just make up whatever pitches you want. You can play chord changes to your favorite song. Just play something that lines up with this beat. Okay, we're going to start steady time, and then we're going to speed up, slow down, go back to steady time, go back and forth between that a couple different times to see what that feels like. All right, this is my timekeeper for now. All right, 1, 2, 3, and. So that's a really fun thing to play with. And the concept of this workshop is taking away some of this voice that we might often have on the shoulder of, jazz or drum set or keeping time or anything like that has to be one way or another. Like sometimes, you might want it to be that way, or the people that you're playing with or working with might want it to be that way. But combine this, do lots of different ways playing with the time. And this is just sort of about being aware and feeling and getting rid of a little of that thinking voice on our shoulder that's like, I shouldn't be doing this. This is bad. This is really bad. And, someone's got to come in and slap your hands and say, no, you should only be playing time, clear spang-a-lang at tempos between 80 beats per minute and 340 at the very maximum. That's a little bit of an overstatement and sort of ridiculous, but you can play around with this, and this is just sort of about listening, getting a feel for time and flow. Okay, so example there was doing it with more of a timekeeping, steady jazz beat. I was even, feathering or playing my bass drum, sometimes a little louder than feathering. I have many feathers, and just making a steady time feel. So what if you were to do that with a common unit of vocabulary? So I'm going to make something up, and then we're going to play around with this. I think you can learn it pretty quickly as well. So let's see, what about this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so drummers or other people just play that rhythm. Ba 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 da dom, ba 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 da. And you can use 2 pitches if you're playing on something that is not a drum set. Ba 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 da dom, ba 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 da. Ba 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 da da, ba 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 da. Let's try to do that together. 1, 2, 3, and. Okay, that's our chunk of vocabulary. But now instead of saying it like, I would like to go to the car wash today, we're going to speed it up, slow it down. I would like to go to the car wash today. I would like to go to the car wash today. I would like to go to the car wash today. All right, so I'll give some examples, and then I'm going to leave some space for you to do it. We're going to trade kind of out of time ideas. So here we go. Me, and then I point at you, you try some of yours. 1, 2, 3, 4. My turn. Okay, great. So we don't always just have to use those notes. Now I'm going to take that idea, just a collection, ba 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 da ba 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 da, and use it more conversationally. I can introduce different pitches. In this case, I'm going to use my entire palette of my drum set, and then you can try some of that on your own. All right, here we go. Just riffing on this idea, speeding it up, slowing it down, leaving space. Maybe I can do some double stops. I can, of course, use my feet. I could rub my nose on my floor tom. Anything could happen. We're just going to see what happens, but I'm going to try to stick with that same sort of idea, speeding up, slowing down, and maybe also sometimes just playing it the way it originally is. Here's me. So did you hear that? It kept the same sort of string throughout. I'm speeding it up, slowing it down, and just doing some different things with it. So that can be a really fun thing to approach at the drum set as well as on any other instrument. So I would recommend people who are not drummers take these concepts and put them on your instrument. Just because I'm playing here on a drum set doesn't mean you can't sing it, doesn't mean you can't play it on the bagpipes. Do it. All right. So as we're doing lots of different things to hopefully try to not think, like that's our goal for the day. I'm not thinking as much as possible these days, and just trying to make some sound, enjoy what's going on around me. And if you're like me right now, you're probably spending a lot of time not around people physically, and that's the right thing to do. But it doesn't mean that we can't be having some sort of a social interaction with each other and with sound in particular. So just as a plug for things that are going on, ways that you can try and share your ideas in this sort of way, drop a comment below. We can still be social. We can have an interaction with things like this. All right, videotape yourself trying these things, and I'd love to see them. And I'm not going to judge them in a way that's critical. And I think that's a really fun thing to do with strangers, honestly, because I don't have any conceptions with what other people are going to do, and getting unsolicited mail is sometimes fun. All right, so record some videos and send them to me. We're going to go into a different area of not thinking. I did think a little bit in preparing for this because I had some concepts in mind. But the thing that I'm going to play around with, we have this drum set, and this is pretty much a typical jazz kit. I have my 14-inch snare drum, I have a 12-inch rack tom, 14-inch floor tom, 18-inch bass drum, and a few cymbals. Okay, so I can do a lot of things that sound like jazz, and I can do a lot of things that sound like just different stuff. And with this as my palette, I can also play around with the sounds with no anything. I can play, with my hands. I can play with sticks. I can play with brushes. I can play with, toothpicks or something like that. An idea that I had was I'm going to change the sounds of these drums a little bit, and then try to play something that is, again, an improvised solo. So the things I grabbed, I have here, these are like these little slider things that you can use for at-home exercise. I recommend getting those out. They might also be underneath your couch or something like that. Try to keep things from scuffing the floor. But they're also really cool because you can put them on your tom-toms, which normally would sound like this. Put one there, and it gets this cool, it's dead, but you hear that. This nifty little overtone. And then let's see, I like this little jingly ring that makes the snare drum kind of a little drier. Also has some jangles on it. And I'm just gonna play around with something that is more of a groove solo and see what sort of sounds I can get out of this. I might grab some of my other nonsense that I have down here and just take this kit and just explore the space a little bit. All right, so here is another exploration. You can try this at home. Manipulate the sound of your instrument. play around with sound. Go ahead. There's nothing saying you can't. Don't think about it. Just do it, listen to what you like, and try out some different ideas. Another thing that I'm going to bring up right now, and obviously if you're watching this, means that you are experiencing something that was recorded. And that is something that I highly recommend to all of my students, because you can do all kinds of stuff and you can not think, and you can have lots of fun, and you can go back later and maybe you might want to just open up your little box of thinking thoughts and think about the music and listen to it and say, ooh, I like that little thing that I did there. I'm going to try to turn that into Chris Teal lick number 426, and then I might copy it. I enjoyed something I was doing here. Little dead stroke. And I might hear that in the recording, and my thinking thoughts might say, oh, I'm gonna practice that until it turns into something that I can do not only spontaneously, but just with more fortitude that comes from practice. And so this is just trying out a lot of different things without any sort of judgment. And I, of course, recommend that you are doing that along with me. You might be playing while I'm talking. That's fine. Focusing, and it takes all kinds of different shades. All right, let's put it that way. Okay, so we have all these different sounds that we can make and experiment with. There are probably the only limit that you have on this is time and your imagination. And that, time hopefully now is something that we have in maybe a little bit more supply than if you're watching this right now and you are living in a time where humans are not quarantined to their home, then good on you. I hope that we'll be there very soon. But right now, it's a great time where we're overthinking a lot of things. Turn off that thinking brain, go to your instrument, and just play some things and explore the space a little bit. Use up that time in an alive sort of way. And so that's something that I think that we can all try a little bit. Okay, so another way that I have been thinking about, I have not been thinking. Another way that I put together to explore the drum set and that you can explore your instrument is actually away from this instrument. And as we'll see some clips here, I really love playing the piano. That's probably what I would consider my first studied instrument. I started off playing violin, but at a younger age didn't quite stick with me, and didn't really put in the time to make much out of it. Maybe I will get back to it someday, but piano was something I spent a lot of time with. I have a decent amount of understanding of the way that I should hold my hands and body and things like that, so I can get into some trouble. So what I like to do is improvise and learn different bass lines, and that's the way that I compose a lot of the songs that I put together for recordings and playing in bands like that. Sitting at the piano, I'll start out with a bass riff like what we're going to hear in a second, and then maybe I'll add some chords, and then maybe I'll add some different sections, and I'll just sit down at the piano, and if I repeat something enough that I like it, I'll get at my phone, as we'll see in this little clip here, and I'll review it, and then I'll maybe turn into a little bit of a composition. The pieces that I put together for this little exploration were done pretty quickly, and so I was trying not to think about it. I was trying just to have fun and create something that then I could listen to, maybe do some fun things with my Logic Pro X program, add some keyboard sounds, and improvise around on the drum kit. And so that's another fun way you can create a little bit of a playground that has certain amounts of structure and give you some areas where you can mess around and try some of your ideas. Intentionally, when I was playing this piano groove, I didn't want it to stick strictly into a static time feel. And as you'll be able to watch as the the cursor goes along, and you'll see what I'm watching and listening to when I'm jamming along here. The time kind of swells and contracts a little bit. There are grooves in certain places, but it was something that I intentionally didn't want to write out in a metric sort of way. And that's a fun challenge for me, because I'm not exactly trying to lock in a really, really clean way, like if I were Snarky Puppy or something like that, just trying to get all these cool hits. But maybe some of the groove and some of that stuff, I guess listening to it back, it sounds like was listening to a Larnell Lewis solo over this cool vamp, and yeah, it's probably snuck into my brain a little bit, at least rhythmically and concept-wise. So that's what's going to be going on here. I would really recommend, if drum set is your only instrument, or if clarinet is your only instrument, or anything like that, find a keyboard, get something like that where you can play around and just treat it as it's a musical playground. It's not too hard to get a working knowledge of the same sort of understanding of pitch. And if you've been a musician, you obviously have a decent sense of rhythm and form and things like that. And so use that piano as a way to create some markers for yourself to play around with. Okay? So the way that I am going to ask you to interact with me and the recording on this is that as it goes by, you're going to see in the little green bars there's some MIDI slashes and dots and things like that. They're going to be coming up and showing time. There are often lots of groupings of hits like bop, 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 or bass lines that are going to be going. Anytime you see a section that has more than one line happening at once, and I mean like articulation, you're going to see like bop, 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 2 or 3 different keyboards happening. I want you to try to, it's sort of like, I don't know, whatever that is, guitar hero, it's like drum MIDI hero. Try to play something that make up your own pitch that lines up with those. So we're kind of going to be doing a little bit of target practice. There's another section here where there is just nothing happening. There are some sections where there's hits and then there's space. I'm going to point to you in that space. I want you to make any sort of sound you would like. Another thing you can do if you are not an instrumentalist or vocalist going on in here, have some movement. You can interact with dance moves. I mean, what the heck? That's something that I think culturally we lose out on a lot of rhythm because we're afraid to dance or we're afraid to move. And if you're at home watching this, maybe nobody else is with you, and if they are, then just have a little fun, goof around, make your body happen. You could be walking your feet along. You could be doing Chris Ziemba's patented pancake dance, or you could just be punching the air. Just make some movement. Just don't worry about what's going on. Don't think about it. Just make something that's going to be fun. Okay? So, I don't know. What is the name of this piece? I don't even care. I'm not going to think about a title right now. We're going to start this off together. I'm going to improvise and play along with the groove a little bit. I want you to make some sound along with me and make some movements, and then we'll see each other at the end, and hopefully we'll have had a good time. All right. So, here we go. Okay, so I hope you guys did that. Hope you moved your bodies around. Hope that was a little bit fun. Of course, with the miracle of recording technology, you can go back, you can do that a bunch. And I know I'm gonna, because it's a fun thing for me to do. All of these things that I have walked us through today, I don't want us to think about it too hard. This is meant to be a fun, diversion of your day that hopefully gets some ideas, which you'll think about at some point. Don't think right now, but hopefully you moved your bodies around and had a good time playing around with your sense of static and elastic time feel is great to do. Playing around with different manipulations of the sound of your instrument and what is normally expected is really fun to do. So I would recommend that. And coming up with your own little digital playground to mess around and try to play in a different way than you might in playing along with existing recordings is a fun thing to do. And I recommend everybody do these things as a way just to, play around with your expectations of the instrument, whether it's drum set or anything else like that. All right, before I send you off and watch all the rest of today's joyous experience of jazz and improvised music, I just, again, like to thank the University of Arkansas Community Music School and the IfCM for putting this on. And please tune in to the rest of the videos that are here today. If you'd like to learn some songs and get involved with what the IfCM is doing on the regular, then subscribe to this here darn YouTube channel. You can even come and do a virtual camp with us this summer. We're of course going to be doing stuff like that, live interaction, not just pre-recorded videos, but there's going to be links down below. And yeah, have a great day if you're watching this on Saturday, April 25th. Everybody be happy. Try to do something that enables you to have some fun creativity today. Thanks.